One of our viewers writes in, people talk about a cool red or a cool yellow, and if you mix the wrong red and blue together, you get muddy purple rather than the proper purple. I still have confusion if I'm trying to identify whether the primary I have is cool or warm. Well, we don't need confusion, we need clarity. Okay, let's begin with the color wheel. The color wheel is one of our guides for figuring these things out. So it's better if you begin with the color wheel rather than what someone else has told you to try to remember. Because sometimes people will get really excited about some sort of theory and then they start telling you, you must do this and you must do that, when it might not be that way at all. So let's just sort this thing out. On the color wheel, we have the color wheel is built on three primaries. We have the yellow, we have the red, and we have the blue. And the way you know it's a primary is that it cannot be mixed with two other colors. Of course, then we have the secondaries, and that seems to be where the problem comes. Which primaries do you mix to get a clear or non-muddy secondary? All right. Let's just stop right there with primary and secondary and look at temperature. The way the color wheel is divided, or the way color works, is we have colors that have blue in them. Blue is the coolest color of the three primaries. Red and yellow are warm colors. So what that means is any color that has yellow or red in it is going to have some warmth to it. Any color that has blue in it is going to have some coolness to it. Now when we have colors coming straight out of the tube, that gets to be a different thing, because the tube colors are made with either minerals or chemicals or some ingredients that might cause a color to lean one way or another. And then we have that problem of, is it cool or is it warm? So let's begin. Yellow. Now, there are colors, all kinds of yellows that are what we might call a high saturation yellow. Some tend to lean a little bit more towards green, and some tend to lean a little bit more towards orange. Now, what did I say? If it leans a little bit towards green, that means it has blue in it. That means it will be cooler. If it leans a little bit more towards orange, that means it has some red in it. It means it's a little warmer. And you can detect that with your eyesight. So I want to do a little experiment here with you and see if you can see exactly what I'm talking about. So I'm going to start out. There are multiple colors that you can do you can use to do this experiment. But I have on my palette here, arranged for you, a cool version and a warm version of each of the primaries. So I'm going to start out with yellow, and I'm going to take this color of yellow, this is lemon yellow, and I'm just going to put it right here. I'm going to put a stroke of this lemon yellow right here, a large enough area so that you can see it. Right there. Then I'll wash the brush so that I don't have any of that left in it. And beside that, I'm going to put a stroke of Hansa Yellow Light. Now, it could be cadmium yellow. It could maybe be cadmium yellow light. It could be, there are several choices here, but Hansa Yellow Light just happens to be the one that I'm using here. Now, we put them side by side. Do you notice anything when I put them side to side? Do you notice a difference in them? And as far as temperature goes. Now I'm going to use another little tool here to help you spot the difference. This is a spectrum color wheel. You can Google spectrum color wheel, and then when the next page comes up, click on images, and you'll get a whole slew of images, among which you should find something that looks like this, where the colors are continuous instead of being separated like the traditional color wheel. Alright, now if you'll notice what happens with color, This is the way color works. What happens to color? At some point, color will lean, or yellow, let's say, all colors do this, will lean towards green. It'll be picking up a little bit more green, and it becomes cooler. On the other hand, it might lean a little bit more towards yellow, and therefore it becomes warmer. Now let's just look at what happens and compare what we have right here. And if you'll notice, this yellow, if you look at those two together there, this yellow seems to be picking up a little bit more of the green. Therefore, it's cooler. If you go on the other side and do the same, hold the same area here, you see there's a difference. So now I can rotate that, and you can see now that this yellow is picking up a little bit more red, and therefore it's warmer. So that's a good way to learn your colors, to learn the difference between which of the yellows is warmer and which are cooler. Now I'm going to go through the three primary colors and do the same thing with you, so that you can then discern this thing. It's not a complex thing. It's nothing you have to memorize. It's just something you need to register in your vision. So let's go to red now. There are lots and lots and lots of reds. There are the reds on the cadmium side, and among the reds that are cadmium reds, we have some that are a little bit cooler and some that are a little bit warmer. Then we have other kinds of reds. So if you want a cool and a warm, you can make your selection. But this is a good way to test it. Now what I have on the palette, here I have Naphthol red. Naphthol red registers pretty close to a spectrum red, but then let's just see what it does in comparison. So I'm going to put, let's get this sort of range in a little triangle. We'll just put the Naphthol red right here. Now, right now we can't tell, beyond knowing that red is warm and blue is cool, we can't really tell right now whether that is a cool red as compared to other reds, or is it a warm red as compared to other reds. So before I do the comparison, I'm going to go to another color, and that's alizarin crimson. Alizarin crimson, as it comes out of the tube, is a very dark, transparent color. So I'm going to add just a little bit of linseed oil to it, so that here we can see it a little bit more transparent, and therefore, and a little bit of linseed oil right here. Alright, we're going to see it a little bit more transparent and see a little bit more about its temperature. So let's see. Yeah, there we go. That gives us adding a little bit more, a little bit of linseed oil, and not white. When you really want to test the characteristics of these colors, you don't want to use white to test the darker colors, because white changes the character of the color, and that's for another quick tip, another lesson. Just putting these side by side now that you can see, let's go and do the same test again. Alright, now we test it with spectrum color wheel. So let's start with this one. Now I can rotate. So we have a wide range of colors that we could call red, or red, yeah, if we just kind of block it off to where we might call it red if it appears by itself. So I could start right here rotating. No, that's not it, that's not it, that's not it, that's not it. Pretty much right there, isn't it? Maybe right in there. Pretty much that. Alright, so we take that same area and compare to this color. That's not it. So now I begin to rotate it another way. I'm rotating it towards cool, and now we can begin to see, if we squint, even though this is darker, we begin to see that it registers more like this area right here than it does this area right here. So you can see as we would rotate the wheel around, we can tell this is warmer. This has more yellow in it. It's warmer. Rotate that wheel around, keep rotating it till we find an area where we can squint and see that it actually begins to feel cooler in this range right here. So it's one of the best ways I know to make yourself aware of whether a color is cooler or whether it's warmer. Now let's go to two that there's a lot of controversy about. I haven't said yet anything about which color is warmer, yellow or red, and I'm not going to, because there's a lot of controversy about that. Just talking about just the basic temperatures of of the colors that we have available to us in the primaries. All right, there are many, many blues available. There's cobalt blue, which with some companies registers pretty much on the spectrum of blue. But there's also ultramarine blue, which is a very, very popular color. And there's phthalo blue, which is another popular color. So let's put those here and see how they register. There again, those two colors are very, very dark. So in order for us to be able to see them well enough to read them, we will need to add just a little bit of linseed oil, not much. If you add much, it sort of distorts it. And so let's go with phthalo blue first. I'll just add that phthalo blue is a very, very strong color. Now let's see, do I have it? It's probably, let's get just a little bit more linseed oil in it. See if we can get a little bit closer to your being able to see. There we go. So you can see the true hue of phthalo blue. There it is right there. Now rinse the brush out really, really good. So when you're doing these kinds of tests, you always want to be sure that your brush is thoroughly rinsed out before you move from one color to the other, else you'll distort your test. This is more science than it is art, but it's a way to get to know the colors. Now, let's go to the ultramarine blue. A little bit of linseed oil, because it's a very, very dark color. It's a weaker color, weaker in tinting strength than phthalo blue is, so it might not need quite so much linseed oil. Let's just see. It's a little bit more than that. I've got linseed oil out of your view here. You don't really need to see that. It's just a little bit of linseed oil in the bottom of a little container. All right, now let's see here. Let's put phthalo blue here, but just a touch more because I want you to see that comparison of those two colors. There we go. Now you can see the true hue of phthalo blue and ultramarine blue. All right, now let's go back to the spectrum color wheel. All right, we'll start here with this one. All right, this is the blue range, you can see, between violet and, what do you say right here, red, violet, and yellow, green. There's where the blue registers. Well, if I hold the blue, where we see blue right here, I hold it right next to this, you see that doesn't cut it. That's not it at all. All right, let's rotate it now. If you rotate it this way, you see it just gets worse. If I rotate it towards the red, you see what I'm doing here. Blue, violet, and as red begins to mix in with the blue, we get red, violet, and then that becomes violet, and then it becomes red. So you can see that's the way the spectrum works. All right, so if we move it in this direction, so we see that that's not going to work. So we move it in this direction, and we'll find that right in here, you can begin to see it's got yellow in it. So we see that phthalo green has yellow in it. All right, that's our test. It has yellow in it. Now before we make a declaration, let's see. If it has yellow in it, moving this way makes it warm. Now let's move that phthalo green, that area right over here. See, that doesn't cut it. So now we've got to rotate back towards violet. So rotate. So get right about here, right in here. A little bit of red into that. So there we can see that this is actually, this is where everybody's going to start, not everybody, this is where people are going to start messing with me because there are some people that think, some people have declared red as the warmest color. There are other people that have declared yellow as the warmest color. Well, it doesn't matter what you declare. How the color mixes with other colors will show you which is warmer and which is cooler. So I'm saying that the phthalo blue, because it has more yellow in it, is the warmer color. See, as it moves in this direction right here. And I'm saying the ultramarine blue, because it has more red in it, or leans more towards violet, is the cooler of the two. Now, one way that you might test that, and I'm not going to take the test business any further, or one way that you can test all of these, if you mix a warm color, a warm blue, with a warm red, then you will probably get something that is not a pure purple, because they will have the blue and the red will have a little bit of yellow in them. You won't get a pure purple. If you mix a cool red with cool blue with a cool red, they both have blue in them, and because they both have blue in them, you should get a purer purple. Red plus blue equals purple. You can experiment with that yourself. Okay, going back to the yellow. If you mix the warm red, the warm yellow, with either of those colors, you're going to get a really nice green. If you mix a cool blue, did I say blue for this one? I meant to say blue. I might have said red. Gosh knows what I said. Anyway, if you mix a cool blue with either of these yellows, because the blue has some red in it, it's going to be rather cloudy. So I suggest that you take this experiment and play with it. I shouldn't have to show you. I shouldn't have to. I think it would be better, rather than my showing you how these work together, it would be better for you yourself to play with mixing. Mix a warm with the warm of the yellow, see what you get. Mix a warm with the cooler of the yellow, see what you get. Mix a cool with the warm of the yellow, see what you get. Mix a cool with the cool of the yellow, see what you get. And same thing with the reds. If you do that experiment for yourself, then that should clear up any confusion you have about the primaries and which are warm and which are cooler. Hope you enjoyed this quick tip. If you have questions or a suggestion for a quick tip, leave us a comment right down here in the YouTube comment box. And take a trip over to DianeMize.com and look at all the things we have there for you, including full-length video tutorials. And while you're there, sign up for our newsletter so you'll always be informed of our latest adventures. And thanks for watching.